The nationwide debate about destruction of cultural tributes, monuments, and symbols is raging on. Princeton University has now removed the name Woodrow Wilson from its famed public policy school because of the 28th president's, quote, racist thinking. Meanwhile, about 150 protesters showed up in New York City to stick up for a statue of President Teddy Roosevelt that is now planned for removal from outside the Museum of Natural History. So exactly where does the cancel culture stop? Let's bring in Media Research Center President and founder Brent Bozell. Good to see you, Brent. Thanks for coming in.
Hi, how are you doing, David?
Since the media is so partial to the woke culture, I think it's impossible to know exactly what Americans, particularly American voters, think of it. What do you think they think of it?
Well, I think they began thinking that this was a stance against racism, and how noble could that be? But I think what they're seeing with every day that goes forward is that this has nothing to do with racism. This has everything to do with tearing down America. The media know this, and the media are, in a sense, in cahoots in the sense that they won't report it. David, all this talk about tearing down Confederate statues because of the symbolism of racism. Now, I'll argue that one all day long, but let's put that to the side. The same movement, what else are they doing? They're tearing down or wanting to tear down the statue of Ulysses S. Grant, who led the North in the fight against slavery, where hundreds of thousands of people died. Tearing down the statue of Abraham Lincoln. Trying to tear down the Emancipation statue in Memorial in Washington that was honoring the Emancipation Proclamation and paid for by freed slaves. Tearing down the 54th Regiment statue in Massachusetts that honors the black regiment that fought against the Confederacy. The more the public is looking at this, the more they're realizing you're anti-racist, you're attacking the people who were anti-racist. This is not about race. This is about destroying the foundational principles. So today's Woodrow Wilson, tomorrow's Teddy Roosevelt. God only knows what's going to happen next.
But
they're trying to tear down America.
90% of the media is out there to try to stir up racial tensions even more than they already have been stirred up. The Mediaite, which views what the media does and how they do it from a left-wing perspective, you do it from a conservative perspective, they do it from the left. But they out and out lie about what's going on. For example, they put up the president over the weekend. Some of the tweets he put up I had problems with, but one he put up with the posters, the most wanted posters of the rioters. And they said that they were mostly minority suspects that President Trump put up on there. But in fact, there were 15 most wanted posters that he put up. 9 of the 15 people were clearly white people. It wasn't mostly minority, it was mostly white people that he put up there. Yeah. So they're lying in order to make the racial tensions even worse.
Sure, and they're reporting that what's going on in Seattle with the mob taking over part of the city where people are dying, they can't get assistance, they're being gunned down. They're calling that a block party. No, this is the bias by commission and bias by omission. The bias by commission is putting this spin of a nobility that enshrines a domestic terrorism. And on the bias by omission is refusing to report the truth. So that when something like this happens, you ought to have the media coming to the president's defense, saying that it is not true what they're saying about him. But there's nothing that Donald Trump can do, nothing whatsoever, where the media will ever defend what he did, no matter how true it is.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens in the fall, whether the American public buy it or not. Brent Bozell, good to see you. Thank you very much for coming in.